Hello everybody, this is John, aka Schwartzadder for the True Gamers Club, and I am bringing you guys a single PC streaming setup with OBS. Set up some of the settings that we use, and probably would recommend to you guys. I know most of the tutorials from what I have seen, setting it up and some researching and all that, it looks like most of it has to do with the like a dual PC streaming setup. I know most people do not have that. So we are trying to stream on the TGC with a single PC, a streaming setup with an upload of about 6 megabytes per second, or megabits per second, excuse me. So we don't have the best internet, but we do have a beefy computer. The specs that really matter for this tutorial, I have a i7 8700, not a Coffee Lake processor, just a normal one, and NVIDIA graphics card 1080, not the 1080 Ti. So this computer is pretty beefy, but when you are going with a single PC streaming / recording setup, although your computer may be extremely beefy, things can lag or may not look as good. So I do have our OBS opened up right here. I'll just launch us into the settings. I personally don't think any of the general stuff really matters. I left everything here on just what it came with the default. The stream, that's where you put in your stream key and all that. I will not go to that. I do stream on restream.io. That is a pretty interesting service. If you do have more than one streaming service, you can stream to YouTube, Twitch, Mixer, Facebook, all at the same time without really putting any at all stress on your computer, any extra stress on your computer. But if you are focusing on Twitch and that, you can just use Twitch. But Restream is definitely an option. So I'm just going to go to output here. You can go to simple. Honestly, if you just want things to just work for you right out of the gate, I would probably go simple. But if you are looking for a little more advanced settings, then I would go advanced. So if you are going simple, so there's definitely a lot of factors that go into streaming. You could be streaming like an Xbox or PS4 or some other console via a capture card that you have in your computer, or just like outside of your computer, like a HD PVR2. And if you are streaming on a console, then you aren't putting any gaming stress on your computer. And basically that means you're not using up any extra CPU, you're not using up any extra graphics card, etc. So if you are doing that, I would recommend doing a software encoder. The X264 is a good one. That's what everyone recommends you use. I know if you're not a partnered streamer, we are definitely not partnered streamers. But I think the max a non-partnered streaming can go is 3,500. Okay, so, as a non-partnered streamer, your viewers on Twitch at least cannot, Twitch, I think Mixer and YouTube cannot lower the resolution. So really what a video bitrate is the amount of data that you are sending to Twitch and the amount of data that the person watching is receiving. So if you do go up to like, I wouldn't ever recommend this. Don't ever go up to like 8,000 because you are sending something that people with lower quality internet connections cannot receive, and they can't lower like the quality or anything. So I know most people say that 2,500 is the way to go for bitrate. Twitch does say that bump ups in bitrate don't really increase the quality of the stream. So really, I mean, they will increase it by a marginal factor. So really, if you do lower it, if you lower it to like 1,000 or something, it probably will look a little blockier. But from what I've found in my research, 2,500 is the sweet spot. I actually may lower this for our streams. Usually I use 3,500, which I think is the max that non-partnered streamers can go on any service. So I would say anywhere from 2,500 to 3,500, you can experiment with that. But 2,500 is probably where you want to be. Like I said, if you're streaming with an Xbox or PS4 or something with an external capture card, I would go with X264 software encoding. Now, the audio bitrate is just like the video bitrate. That's the amount of audio data that you are sending through the stream. Granted, when you are streaming audio, I feel like that's a little... Granted, you want some good quality, but this isn't really as important, I guess, compared to video. People obviously do want to hear sounds, but I do think like if you bumped it down to like 128 or 96, you would be fine. But I just have it at 320. People can't like lower the quality of the audio, but I think this does a fine job for us, definitely. You can enable or disable this. I would enable this if you didn't want, if you just wanted to go up, like just get your stream started, you can try this setting right here. But I do have an advanced encoder settings and the bitrate limits. You want this checked. The nice thing about OBS actually is that when you have this checked, it will not go over the video bitrates that are allowed in the different streaming services. So if you did put like 8,000 video bitrate, sure, you can put that and check this, and it will still only broadcast like 3,500 max for you. I leave these custom encoder settings alone, but for this encoder preset, this really depends on the type of computer you're having. I know most people from my research say that an encoder preset of very fast with 2,500 is like the sweet spot for non-partnered streamers. That, I mean, I would assume that's true. I do know never do ultra fast because that will just make a very blocky stream. But from what I've seen, I do not think very fast looks very good. I do know that I watched a video pretty recently of Ninja setting up his OBS. He said he does very fast with a video bitrate of like 4,500. I'm interested to see if he actually does use very fast, since he's now like an extremely popular streamer. I don't think it would look too good, and his streams look fantastic, but that could be because he's streaming like 1080p 60 FPS now, as well. But if you do have a beefier computer, you can bump up to slower. So this ultra fast will use less CPU. So like that would free up your computer to like render other things if you were doing multiple things on your computer at once, like rendering a video, uploading a video, etc. Don't use ultra fast or super fast because those will make it look very blocky. Like I said, very fast is the goal for most streamers. However, I've found that there is just a little bit of a bump up in quality as you go lower, but also from what I've read, as you get past fast, I believe it's either fast or faster. As you get past those, the increases in quality are pretty marginal. You won't notice much. But for what I use, I think it personally looks great. Since I have a little extra CPU usage when I am streaming with my Xbox, I put it on medium since I do have a beefy computer. Like I said though, this all depends on the type of computer you have. I have an i7 8700. You can see right now I am recording in OBS, and only 1.3% of the computer is being of the CPU is being used. I would recommend though, if you do have a like a worse laptop. I did have a ThinkPad Twist from Lenovo. I don't even know what i7 it had, but it was good enough to encode different things. I was able to stream on it, like my Xbox and Wii U and that, and it looked okay. I think the problem that I had was that I either had the bitrate up too high, or I was using too much CPU, or my internet just wasn't too good, because I do remember at some points the stream would lag. But I would say if you do have a slower computer, slower CPU, like an i5 or something, I would say go very fast. These settings right here would be fine if you have like a older laptop and are trying to stream Xbox. If you do notice your stream is lagging for whatever reason because your computer isn't encoding it fast enough, you can bump it down to ultra fast or super fast just to get your stream out there. But I will tell you, if you are new to streaming, if you do have a lower quality video, then people probably won't stay to watch. So I would say stick with very fast, and then test it on slower settings as you go along. Most of these settings will be fine for these older computers, but like I said, you'll definitely want to test this stuff. But what I use when I am streaming my Xbox is this, just because my computer can handle it. Recording is a different story. You can record and stream at the same time on OBS. If you are leaving it on simple, I would go with indistinguishable quality and large file size. You can do lossless quality if you have the hard drive space, but I would usually just do indistinguishable. Always record in MP4, since most video editors can't go with like some of these other things. I know mine doesn't do FLV or TS. If you do have it, I would recommend doing this NVENC. This is a graphics card encoder that is built into the NVIDIA graphics cards. This encoder is pretty much used most of the time for recording only, just because it has gotten much better in the past couple of years, and it stops most of the stress on your CPU because it is in the graphics card. And it does, from what I've seen, it doesn't, on my own computer, doesn't really stress the graphics card out too much. So if you are recording with like a HD PVR or something, you can do that. If you do have this. Now, I know most laptops only have Intel CPUs, and they use the HD graphics, which is also Intel. You can do software x264. Just be careful again. In the simple tab, at least, it doesn't say how much CPU your computer is going to be using, and this may or may not affect it up here in streaming, but just be careful. If you are recording, I would probably say go into the advanced tab right now. But if you do have it, go with NVENC, because it's made basically just to record. Never go with QSV or QuickSync technology, just because that is not good for high motion games. It's really any motion that there is in a game, it just becomes blocky, and there's a lot of artifacting and that type of thing. So these are the settings I would recommend using if you have a beefier computer. You can skip back in the video to see settings that would work if you have a older computer. if you do want to go advanced and mess with some of these settings, these are some of the settings that I use. I always use these extra options. The default, there's no extra options. I wouldn't mess with that. I always go with audio track, just one audio track. It just mixes everything together, and they do, OBS obviously does have a mixer down here that you can mess with. So I always just do one. And these are the settings, again, that I use if I am streaming my Xbox. If you are a non-partnered streamer as well, I would rescale your output to 1280 by 720, and you can do 60 FPS. That's pretty much this 1280 by 720, and then 2500 here, and then very fast is the sweet spot for just non-partner streamers starting out. I will say in the simple tab, if you are using this, you will have to go to video and make your output resolution 720 down here, because that will, for whatever reason, this doesn't allow you to do it, so it will try and output at 1080p, which you won't want if you're trying to attract viewers with a worse quality internet connection. But since I don't use a simple tab, I just keep this as is, because it's good for recording as well. So you do want to rescale the output to 1280 by 720. Here you can also determine the frames per second value. I always do 60, just to make the gameplay a little smoother. Granted, Xbox can't. I'm pretty sure most games can't really go above 30 FPS, so this doesn't really matter if you're streaming on Xbox. I would probably just leave it at 30. But if you are streaming a game that does support it, you can go with 60. Most games, obviously, if you are streaming on computer, can go well above 60 frames per second, so I would leave that there if you are planning on streaming on the computer as well. So there are these options to, I say the ones that people are most familiar with are, controlled bitrate and variable bitrate. I always just leave it on CBR, because the way VBR works is it lowers the bitrate depending on the motion, so it can look a little blockier, which may not be a problem for some. Quality may be a little worse for others. But like I said in the simple tab, I use 3500. I may or may not bump that down later to 2500. Keyframe interval, I would always keep it to, no matter what you're doing. Again, CPU usage preset, I use medium since my computer can handle it when I am streaming Xbox, but go very fast if your computer can't. This is basically like the quality. It's not the quality, but it is the quality from what I understand. It's basically like the CPU usage preset. Lower is like worse quality, and higher is better quality. So I just leave that on high. I would just do that. I ignore this because it has messed up my stream, so I would just ignore that. Now, if you are streaming your PC games, and you do have a single PC streaming setup, and if you do have NVENC and like a graphics card and all that, I would go with this. I will say, please don't try to stream a game on an older laptop, because it just won't look good. And if you don't have a graphics card or like a very good CPU, then your game itself will lag, which will be bad for you, and it'll probably look worse for the people watching your stream. So again, if you do have a graphics card in NVIDIA, I do have a 1080, so I have this option. I would go with this one. You can watch this video. This guy, Gerald Undone, he does compare the quality of X264 and NVENC at different settings. When I watch this video, and apparently he does QuickSync too, so you can see how bad QuickSync is. I would recommend watching this video. I personally, just like Gerald, think that NVENC has gotten much better in the past couple of years as graphics cards have improved. It is, in my opinion, on par with X264. The only thing you will notice is that at certain points, like if your graphics card is being overloaded or something, your system will give priority to the game. And if that does happen, then if you're like turning or something, very briefly you will notice a little bit of artifacting or like just not good quality at all. I will bump this up so you can sort of see what I'm talking about. Granted, this is being recorded on a recorded video, so go watch this for yourself. But you can see what this looks like, hopefully in this video. It's pretty on par. But as you notice, as he turns, if you look at his car on NVENC, it looks like there's a little artifacting. But again, on a single PC streaming setup, there's not too much you can do. You don't really want to overload your CPU. Let's see. As you can see on the X264, his computer is at 82% CPU usage, while on the NVENC it's at 53%. So that's a huge, drastic difference. It will obviously improve your gameplay. It'll ease up everything that is being used on your computer. So from my eye, from this small video that he has, it's pretty much on par with the X264. Let's see what we can. Yes, and you can see QuickSync. You can see how bad QuickSync is compared to X264. There's a lot of artifacting. It is on par with the NVENC, but for some reason it's just worse. It's on par with the NVENC and CPU usage. I didn't word that right. I don't know why it's worse. It just is. Don't use QuickSync, but do watch this video for yourself and you can see the different quality comparisons. Okay. So the interesting thing about NVENC is that it looks better at higher bit rates, but again, you're working with a limited bit rate if you're streaming to Twitch. You can enforce the streaming encoder settings and just like bump this up to like 6,000 or something. This will put a little more stress on your graphics card. And there may or may not be a marginal increase in the quality. I personally just leave it at 3,500 and it works very well for me. Keyframe interval, again, you're going to want to preset. This right here is different. Like the way this is set up is a little bit different from the X264. This will be the worst quality that you can get. And then this will be the highest quality you can get. And the higher quality obviously uses more of your graphics card. Again, I keep this at high, and I use this at auto. I have seen people go to 4, but I would just leave that at auto. And again, I would just keep this checked, and I would leave these the same, the default. And if you are streaming and playing a game and all that goodness, I would highly recommend using this if you are doing one single PC streaming setup. Sorry, I'm stumbling on my words this morning. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why right here. Right now, I am using 17% of my GPU. That I would say never trust this CPU usage. If you do bump it up to like slow or something and OBS says it's using like 40 or 50% of your CPU, that's what OBS thinks it's using. It's probably what it is using, but you will notice it will be saying like 100% of your CPU is being used, or like 100% of your graphics card is being used. So you do have to remember that you do have like more, if you are trying to use X264, you have to remember that you have many more applications running that, like for example, may or may not be using some of your GPU or like some of your CPU. Let's see. Like right now, Task Manager is using the most CPU on my computer. So another point about this is if you are playing on your computer and you are playing a CPU intensive game, then I would go with N64 or NVENC, excuse me, and use your GPU. That way you can ease some stress up on your CPU, and then you just use your CPU or your GPU for streaming. If you are using a GPU intensive game, then you might as well go for CPU and use the X264. You can tell sort of if a game is CPU intensive if there's a lot of AI, a lot of things that need to be rendered. Like a huge open world game will probably use a lot of CPU, like Skyrim. While something that looks nice will use a lot of GPU. For whatever reason, games like Fortnite, it uses almost all my CPU and it uses almost all my GPU, but I have found when streaming Fortnite that using the NVENC encoder, it makes my gameplay not stutter. It makes the stream pretty dang good, I gotta say. So yeah, I guess the rule of thumb is if you are streaming a CPU intensive game, go with the GPU encoder. If you are streaming a GPU intensive game, go with the X264 encoder. If you are streaming a console with the external capture card, go for the X264 encoder. And just in general, if you are streaming anything on your PC, I would say, I personally would say just go for NVENC. But those are the rules of my own thumb that I have found. Okay, so we'll go on over to recording. I always just leave it on standard, always do MP4, audio track 1. Again, like I said, NVENC H.264 is perfect for recording because that's basically what it's meant to do. I don't need to rescale my output since I'm not using the simple mode. I just have everything at 1080p, which is what I want to be recording at. You want the control bitrate again. Like I said, NVENC will look better at higher bit rates. So you can bump this up really as high as your computer can let it. I personally just go 40,000. I don't know why. I just have found that quality works really well for my computer. When I am playing games though and trying to record, this does not work. Both the stream and the recording stutter a heck of a lot. And what I have found is that bit rate of like 6,000 works fine while I am streaming. But right now you can, if you're not doing much of anything, you can just leave it at 40,000. When I do stream, I do use, I won't search. I do use Hauppauge Capture to record. And I've noticed since, from what I can tell, most of the encoding is being done in the capture card. It eases up a lot of the stress on my CPU, and I can play my game and stream and everything just fine. Again, you'll want this on high quality, profile high, auto. You just want to keep everything the same. Audio, again, you're mixing on only one track, so you can just mess with this track 1. I always bump it up to the highest bit rate because that's it's not the quality of the audio. The sample, if you see sample rate anywhere, that's going to be the quality of the audio, and the audio bit rate is just the amount of information that you are transferring. So just bumping this up will mean like more audio will be transferred to your stream. So I just leave it at that. And I leave this alone. There's no reason to put it. Audio, again, okay, so this is your quality. I put it at 48. That's the highest that I can go on my computer, at least. I do stereo. Desktop, I do this because this is what I am basically is being outputted to my device. This is basically what I can hear on my Xbox or on my computer, so I leave it at that. This is my microphone that I use. I use this Yeti stereo microphone, so I use this as well. And I'm pretty sure most of these are just default, so I just leave that. I don't mess with any of this because I don't find there's any reason to. I use this downscale filter, Lanskos. I can't pronounce that. That's the best that I have found, and that's what most people use from YouTube and all that. I also keep advanced just default. I don't want to mess with this because I'm scared it will like royally F up OBS. Hotkeys, these are for your different scenes over here. You can mess with those yourself because that really just depends on you. But yeah, this is basically everything that I use when I am streaming on a single PC streaming setup. You can check some of the quality on some of our past streams on our YouTube channel. You will be able to tell when QuickSync is being used because of the artifacting. Most of the streams are me just trying to either find out what settings I need to use. If I am streaming on computer, it's either QuickSync or NVENC. You can tell the difference between those. But if I am streaming my Xbox on like Fortnite or something, you will 100% see what X264 will look like as it's being streamed. But yeah, that is it for me, guys. If you did enjoy the video, if it helped you out, please leave a like or a comment or something. If you do think I explained something wrong, do please leave a comment. I don't want to give anyone any misinformation. But yeah, until next time, guys, this is John, aka Schwartz Adder, signing off.